Hello, 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 and very, very good evening. We are on day number 7. This is our last day of the FB Life Challenge, and I'm so thankful and about myself as well that I finished this whole challenge very successfully. And today I have a very good friend and a very nice human being and a beautiful mathematician who loves to design games. So let's welcome Jaspreet. And Jaspreet is, I'll read by quote. Jaspreet is founder of Hatanaki and Math with a Smile, a game creator, an education consultant, and a homeschooling parent. Jasmeet has masters in maths education from Teachers College, Columbia University, and has served at department chair for middle school mathematics in the Birch Button Lennox School. Hope I pronounced it correctly. I am New York, as well as she is advisory board for teacher education at Teachers College, Columbia University, New York. She is an international trainer, LETRS certified, and has authored a series of children's book. With 2 decades experience in the field of education, Jaspreet has worked extensively with children and learners, consulted schools, institutions, government bodies, trained teachers, educators, mentored parents and families in various domains and capacities, ranging from making teaching and learning experiences more meaningful to student engagement, to classroom management, to effective instructional planning, to curriculum design, to providing tools and resources for holistic development of learner communities. Wow, Jaspreet, it's quite a feat to achieve all this in such a short span of time. So I really welcome today to this live where we'll be addressing our audience today. This discussion is today very fascinating for me, and I'm sure it would be for you as well, because this increasing approach towards gamification in learning has started emerging in recent times, right? Not many players are there in the market, and very few people are working on it. um, how do you feel the significant shift, right, and how educators and parents are learning towards this journey, especially maths, because because maths has been such a subject where people have been very disengaged, and they get bored very fast. There's no teamwork, it's very abstract kind of a learning, right? And this gamification, I think, it brings a lot of personalized learning, because every child learns in a very different way. So when it's in the gamified way, this making the strategies, that's very personalized to a child. And I guess that gives more foundation to people, in homes as well and in schools. But before diving into formal interview, I would love to know your journey and what has led you to become math educator and a game creator.
Great. Firstly, thank you for having me, Rakhi. It's my good fortune that I am sharing space with you, an amazing human being yourself, and an amazing math educator. My journey starts as early as my mother being a math teacher, and I began tutoring some of her students when I was 14. Um, so math and math teaching came around then, but I was not very good at math. I was a hard worker. I was not a very brilliant student. That I know about myself. Also, back then there was this whole thing about plugging in numbers into an equation or root memorization. So never really understood at that point why we did something, because that was out of question to ask, even that why we are doing this. We just had to do it. So then undergrad was in international business and finance. And I was in the US on a scholarship, but part of my college fee I had to pay. So I was working alongside to pay for college. And I was teaching in a vocational school. I taught computers before I taught math, but I was teaching those to adults. I was teaching Microsoft Suite, Excel to grown-ups. And every time I used to do an Excel formula, uh, every third adult would come up to me and say, "This is so hard, and I don't get it. I'm not good at math." This was always like the first, icebreaker for everyone was that I'm not good at math. Okay, but
Common
these
notion throughout.
but these were people from like finance and like so many other domains which use math so heavily, or so you think they do. So I really was curious to learn what was happening at the school level with math education. And that's when I completely shifted gears and went into math, studying mathematics formally at Teachers College, Columbia University. And of course, education. So, math education became something that I wanted to dive in. And from there on, I became a math teacher, teaching high school, middle school. I became the department chair for maths in my school in Birchworth and Lennox. And I am so grateful that that entire journey, and my students, my learners taught me everything in terms of, why do we use X? Or all those questions that we used to ask, or, like, why will I put like a decimal point and put a zero and then cancel it? Why do we do these things? So all the whys came up, and then it made me stand on my toes to be able to really research and understand that why, and that how part had to be very clear from my end as an educator for it to come into my classroom. So overall, I think at some point becoming a teacher or a department chair, then at some point becoming a homeroom teacher and understanding that social emotional learning is also very important fabric in learning. Then I became a mother, and I understood how much nature versus nurture plays a role in learning and cognition. So over the period, at some point, math also transitioned to understand language acquisition. I upgraded myself to understand more about um science of reading and how to actually inculcate reading in children. So at some point, math, which was math with a smile for me, where I started training teachers after quitting classroom teaching in the pandemic. I transformed math with a smile to Hatha Noki, which now has three verticals: math, English, and social emotional learning. And maths will always be very dear to me. So, in somewhere along homeschooling my child, as well as being a math educator, trying to make math accessible has always been um the purpose and give back. So, I think Yonju was just a byproduct as a game that I developed to make sure that math was something which was very visual. When you spoke about math being abstract, that's it's like climbing the mountain. But before that, we need more tools for the concrete and the pictorial to reach that abstract level. So that's a very long journey, as abridged as I could do it, Raki. Uh, that's my journey with
Oh,
math.
and unless until you have traveled that journey, you can't get those roots. You can't get that, 360-degree view, basically what's happening with different stakeholders, because teachers have their own viewpoint, schools have their own viewpoint, parents, children have their own viewpoint, and special educators, like especially who come from the external places, they come up with a very different agenda. So I understand where you're coming from, because not exactly the same, but almost the same journey, right? And it's great, like, it's like a solid thing, and then you understand people perspective. So thank you so much, Jaspreet, for sharing your journey. And thank you so much, viewers. If you're right here, please put hashtag live if you're watching live. If you're going to watch replay, please put hashtag replay. As Jaspreet would unfold her journey and her work with teachers and parents, please put your questions right there, so we can answer them at the end. The second question to you, Jaspreet, is what is gamification and how do you see its use in the math classroom?
Very good question, Raki. I think before I talk about gamification in the classroom, I will speak from a parent's perspective. If my child did not eat at some point and I took the spoon to gallop the spoon to my son to get him to actually eat a bite, um, that was gamifying the whole eating experience, so that the objective was that he eats, and that was the goal that I was trying to accomplish, that my child is eating. I think all of that sense are very much into gaming, because we understand that when we gamify something, we engage the user, we engage the person who we are catering to, and we should have some objective in mind. Because a lot of times, sometimes games end up being just a stress buster, or a way to be able to include everyone or involve everyone. Absolutely, which is very much required in a classroom as well, because there are children with diverse needs, and that differentiation that we all want to achieve is sometimes best accomplished by having some sort of a light-hearted discussion or a game. But in recent times, I think this has become more like a buzzword. But what the way I see it, I see gamification in a classroom is, I think it's the bridge between skills and concepts, and it's also a bridge between theoretical knowledge and real life application, a bridge between serious and fun. Because when I think will be more relaxed and you are more relaxed, I think we can do this live so much better than if we are going to be uptight. So I think breaking the monotony and engaging our learners has always been around. So stories or storytelling has been one way of engaging learners. Gamification is another way of engaging learners, and that's how I see gamification in the classroom.
That's a wonderful answer, because what I have seen is, like, um, children, we are teaching adult version of child centric learning instead of child centric learning per se. What children need, right? We all have, been putting the things, shoving down their throats without even understanding how children learn. And children learn through play, right? And the engagement rates, as you said, the engagement and the object learning outcomes and objective of the game are so important. And especially when they strategize something, right, that builds a very different kind of a muscle in a child. And I think that's where, I guess, gamification plays major role. And of course, they're always up for the playing part. So that's another
There's
added on thing.
one thing I do have to say though, like I think I'm still a child, and I think we're all children in big bodies. So we all learn best with a welcoming teacher or educator. We learn best with all research in a way that there is engagement and motivation, and invite from the educator or the subject, and which is brought to life by the educator, to be able to get into that world, be it physics, be it math, be it anything that you're um, trying to teach. So in all of these, I think it ends up being like a tool to improve learning outcomes.
Yes, yes, very true, very true. So let's move to the next question. So, where do you see the gaps in math education, and what problems does your Yonju solve? Okay, so Yonju is one of a beautiful game Jaspreet has designed, and it's very famous right now. I too have a copy. I just forgot to bring the copy, and I was thinking, should I go there and get it? But anyways, so Jaspreet will have a beautiful showcase. Yeah. So before that, just give a bit, the gaps and why did you come up with Yonju, and then we'll have the showcase of it.
Perfect, great. I That's my favorite segment. So
Yes.
I think, in going backwards in terms of teaching adults to then high school, then middle school, then primary and early childhood, one thing we spoke about 360 degree, and also making sure that I was at some point just a teacher who was very selfish about her own classroom, and making sure that my classroom or my students get this. But then I understood cross pollination happens in a classroom, in a school. My children will go to some other teacher, and some other teacher's children will come to me. And then I also became a department chair, so I understood the value of a team and having everybody on board. I became a parent, and I understood better about how a child even learns anything, and how I will not be able to connect if I am not inviting, engaging, motivating my child. It's not intrinsic in a child. It has to be something that is so inviting that or engaging that somebody wants to come into the world of learning. So, in seeing this connect between early childhood to middle to primary to middle to high school, seeing the concepts that happen in high school, which are basically spiraling from uh, previous years, anything that is being taught at a higher level requires some background knowledge. So at every point, I feel that we as math educators are always, and especially if we teach higher grades, we're able to see the gaps even more. Um, and it's only from a top view, because from down I will not be able to, but it's only when I'm on top I'm
Yes.
able to actually look down and see where all the challenges are lying. So I think it was more along those lines that I saw gaps in math education. When my kids are doing calculus, they needed fractions, and fractions were not done well because divisibility rules were not so good. And then we went back to multiplication, then we went back to addition, then we went back to number sense and face value. So, so everything went back to like a basic idea or a fundamental that needed to be clear to be able to actually climb the ladder in a way that there is conceptual understanding. So I think that's when I felt that we need more tools. There are already in plenty tools, but sometimes a lot of educators are not aware, parents are not aware of the tools that are out there. And every tool has a certain advantage and a certain limitation. So my tool will also have something that it will cater to, but it will not cater to all the topics in math or every thing under the sun. So I'm solving a particular problem, which I saw across the board was number sense, critical thinking, problem solving. I saw children having difficulties with decoding word problems and not understanding when to add, when to subtract, when to multiply, when to divide, the very basic at the very fundamental level. But then when I saw case study questions in the 10th grade CBSE board exam or a 12th grade exam, I saw the same struggle happening with you know lengthier word problems not being you know uh, being decoded correctly. So I think that at some point we all started understanding that math needs to be, or learning needs to be multisensory. But then how can we make it multisensory? Because sometimes we will cater to, if today in the world we have a YouTube. So there are teachers using that as a very powerful tool sometimes, but sometimes they're just playing a video, and that does not mean that the child is learning anything, but we've made it audio visual. See, we've made it audio visual because
Yeah.
we're playing, we're showing something, we're making them hear something. So I think at some point I just realized that there were gaps in math concepts, there were gaps in how math is being delivered, and screen time is something that I think as a parent I wanted to limit, um, for all health reasons. So, and the math topics I don't think were being connected very well. So I wanted to develop a tool that is going to cater to all of these challenges, and I hope I'm doing a good job at it as of now.
You are definitely are. You definitely are. We'll take the questions later from the audience. Please
Sure.
do put your questions if you have any questions from Jaspreet. We would love to, answer them in best of our capacity. So the next question is: would you love to show us your Yonju? We would love to see that.
Absolutely. So the box, the deck looks like this. It's also right here. It opens up like that, and there's a ribbon which helps you pull out the cards. Now, what are the cards and what can they do? I will show a very basic version of the game, Rakhi, because it's so
Sure.
extensive. So allow me to present. Share my screen. Let me know if this is visible, Rakhi. I'll make it bigger. Is that better?
Is it fine now? Right? Yeah, we can see.
All right, perfect. So the game Yonju means the number 40 in the Japanese language, and it consists of 44 number cards, which are put into these 10 frames. So I have black circles, I have red triangles, I have green pentagons, and I have blue squares. And they're all 0 to 10 number cards put in these frames like these. And there are also 4 trump cards, which I'll talk about later. So, how do we play a basic version of the game? Assume Rakhi, you and I are playing this game. So, I'm going to shuffle the cards and I am going to distribute 6 cards to player A and 6 cards to player B. So, a 6 to 7 year old can play this game at the moment. So, this is you, Rakhi, on the left, and this is me on the right. As soon as we get our cards, instead of holding the cards in our hand like a fan, when I introduce the game to children as early as 6 plus, 7 plus, I get them to actually put it on a table so that we can help each other out. So we'll put it in 2 rows of 3. And these are the cards that you've been dealt with, Rakhi. So we're going to go ahead and add these cards. That's the first thing we're going to do. The objective is to get a 40, which is Yonju. But we're going to see what our score is at the moment. And to get our score, we don't go random. I also teach my students to be able to use the visuals to help them understand that if they look at 8 and they see those 2 empty spots, it's easier for them to know that they need a 2 to make a 10. And making a 10 or a partner of 10 is an easy way to add. So here we have 8 and 2. That makes a 10. I'm just totaling up or summing the cards. Do you find another partner of 10, Rakhi, in your set?
So we've got 6 and 4.
Perfect. So that's another 10. And then I have a 0 and 9. So Rakhi's score right now is 29 points. And Rakhi, you're 11 points away from 40, which is Yonju. I'm going to do the same for me now. I have a 10 already. Is there another way to make 10 for me, Rakhi?
So you've got a 7 and a 3.
Perfect. I can do that. And I can also make groups of 10. Those would be more than 2 numbers, such as 7, 2, and 1, or 5, 3, and 2 will also make
Perfect.
a 10. So if I make a 10 and another 10, then my score right now is 20 plus 7 plus 1, 28 points. That means I'm 12 points away from Yonju, which is 40. So now from the deck that we shuffled, and these were the cards that we dealt each other, but we are going to now use that deck, which is called the draw pile, to pick a card. And since I distributed, it's Rakhi's turn. So Rakhi, assume you get a 10 when you flip and you check from the draw pile. Is this card useful to you at all, Rakhi, to take and replace so that your score comes up a little bit closer to 40?
Yeah, it's going to be 39 now.
If you take the 10. And you always have to discard a card. So you're going to discard your 0 and put it in the discard pile, which we also keep face down. So your score has gone up from 29 to 39 points. Now it's my turn and I get an 8. And I also find this useful, but when I will take this 8, the card that I'm going to replace is going to be, in this case, my lowest card, which is 1. Because my score is less than 40, sometimes the score is higher than 40, then you actually have to pick low cards. But now a high card is good, and discarding a low card is also the strategy. So if I take that 8 and I replace the 1, do I get 8 extra points, Rakhi, or do I get 7?
You get 7 points, right? Because you're giving 8 and taking away 1.
Perfect. So I get 7 extra points and not 8 extra points because I'm going to give away the 1 and I will go up now from 28 to 35 points. So now again, it's your turn, Rakhi. And now when you are picking your cards, assume that you get a 0. Is that useful to you?
No.
Okay, so we don't always have to take a card. We can discard the same card that we picked from the draw pile and we can put it in the discard pile. So you're still at 39 points and now I will pick a card and I'm getting a 7. Is this useful to me?
You'll get a 42. So if you take away your 2 card, you can make a 40, right?
So this is where strategic reasoning comes in my game. that if I need 5 extra points, but I'm getting a card that's the number 7. So to get those 5 extra points, I need to discard my 2 card in this case. So once I do that, I will be able to take the 7, discard the 2, and shout Yonju because I have gained exactly 40 points. So
Got that. Okay.
that is the basic version of the game for a 6, 7-year-old. And there are adaptations to the game where we can play with like Yonju with the blue and green cards only. Then I bring in the trump cards, and a lot of fun happens then as well. There are adaptations to use other math operations apart addition as the kids get older. So there are many different uses of the game apart the basic understanding of the basic math operations and strategic thinking and critical reasoning.
Awesome. That's interesting. So over here, I can see three parameters basically. One is your number, one is your color, and one is your shape, right? And all three are being used in different ways in different adaptations, as you said.
That's right. So at the moment when I play the basic version of the game, the colors did not matter. But
Yeah.
as we move forward, like for example with the trump cards, if I get the trump card as this one, which says now all green cards carry a negative value, then if you thought that your score was almost 40 with that green, then you're actually going to be going down. You're going to first ignore the green. You'll, in this case, for example, you'll go down 8 points, but then you'll go down further 8 points. So there
Okay.
is a lot of purpose with the colors as well, in different versions, as well as for different math topics, even for patterns and a lot of other math concepts. The colors are useful, but for the basic version of the game, they are irrelevant.
Awesome. That's nice. So two questions, just emerged here. That what age group does Yonju cater to?
So Yonju caters to 3+. So we do
Okay.
not even play the game, this basic version of the game until they're 6 or 7. 3+ is when we begin with a lot of pre-game and early year concepts, and they go all the way till grown-ups. So it's 3
And
to
when you say grown-ups meet?
you and me,
Oh,
50s,
okay. Okay.
60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Oh, so it's like the typical game, the 99 plus, right? Those kind of games.
I don't want to give a number to it, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And what are the concepts does Yonju cover?
So I showed you some basic operations, and above and beyond addition. When I started with addition, there are all the math operations that we can use, mod, square root, percentages for the game. Concepts to teach concepts, I have used Yonju cards for fractions, for algebra, for statistics, um, for matrices and determinants. So there are lots and lots of math concepts. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we
that is
need.
going to be a very, very powerful one.
So yeah, we need a separate session on that.
Yeah, and we're going to do that. We're just doing this today to get a teaser, to get understanding of you and your game, basically. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really nice, and I have planned something for you. So that's for another day. Okay, now, yeah, so there is a very subtle thing, which is going on and which has been going in my mind for a very long time about style and substance. There are very
Mm.
flashy things out there, right? They are marketed well, they're packaged well, whether it's some edtech product or the games or anything for the learning resources, right? But many, and they're expensive as well. So sometimes, now you fear buying something. I have experienced this, that even if it's marketed well, you buy it but there's no substance in it, right? And then you start getting into that thread of the trend, basically, that whatever you buy, it's just flashy, it's just a quick fix solution to something, but it's not long lasting thing, basically, which I can actually keep in my cupboard, and learn throughout my ages, right? So, how does Yonju help in that, and what is your viewpoint on that part?
It's a very loaded and a wonderful question, Rakhi. Firstly, substance versus style. I just see it almost like math concept: place value, face value. So face
Oh, yeah.
value is where I would look at it, whether that style part, and place value is where I would look at it. And you tell me, a face value is just on face value, right? What's going to
Right.
really stick, hopefully, is place value. So visual appeal, of course, definitely styling. I think is an invite, and it should be or a crowd puller, or it's the glitter. And substance, I would say, would be what makes people actually want to come back to it and realize that it's gold. So I think it also goes back to how many times we revisit. We can have a beautiful book in our shelf that we've read once. How many times do we revisit that book? Yonju personally is an invite as well as something that is going to, as I because I named so many topics, and if you understand the progression, matrices, determinants, or algebra, or anything will come in the later years. And actually, right now the cards are also being I'm using them also for social emotional learning, another wonderful segment that we should do at some point, Rocky, and questioning techniques and so many other ways. So, and they're being used in a team to build team building exercises in a boardroom. So they've basically gone and traveled many different buildings, a part of school or a home. So I think anything's long. If I want something to last, definitely it has to be meaningful, and it goes back to how it has been designed in a way that there is that pulling it back from the shelf and revisiting it and revisiting it. So that has been my intention, that these are not just cards for primary or early years. They travel with you and they go with you as you go along. And once you stop thinking of them in terms of math, then you start using them as a life tool for social emotional learning. So they are very much there to stay. At least from my end, that's the intention.
And that's so nice, Jasprit. And I was actually moved when I listened to your previous one of the session, that how they are helping in the hospitals, right? That really moved me. That something, some ideas take life of their own, right? You plan something when you start the ideation stage and all, but when it actually goes to the public, it becomes something else, and that has been such heartening thing to listen. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, going to the next one, how is Jeonju being received right now? And please share, the wins, challenges, or barriers. So you can take, two wins or challenges, and barriers itself, because still, what is the penetration of, Jeonju in the market, and how people, parents, schools have perceived it.
Great. I am very fortunate that several partner schools across the globe have taken Yeonju for their classrooms, especially the places where they know me as a math consultant, or where I took my math from scratch program. It was a given, and they took on to it, and I'm very fortunate that I have more time to invest in those schools to actually not just give them a demo and leave it at that. I'm able to actually every day work on a lesson related to Yeonju, or in trying to use Yeonju in the classroom. So I've been grateful. I've been grateful to CENTA. Very recently, I had a webinar on educating educators on Yeonju, and I got a wonderful response. I have to share. I got a post from a person who watched the webinar, and they used Yeonju synonymous to a teaching methodology. I'm just humbled that like it's not a game for someone now. It's a teaching method. So I think what better could I ask for? I have actually hosted a Yeonju competition in a school. I've had love from James Stanton, the amazing mathematician from Global Math Project, as well as Mathematics Association of America, who's given his seal of approval to the cards. I've done a few expos locally, and have some upcoming workshops coming up. So it's catching on. So that's a good thing. And the hospital part that you shared, I do have to share that is actually reached patients who are neurodivergent as well as patients who have Alzheimer's. um, so there are nurses playing the game with these patients. So it's and then in corporates, it's being used as a team building exercise for social emotional learning and emotional intelligence. All of that is good. My barrier, I think, would be the question that I always get, which any person who's bringing in any change would get: where's the time? I want to do this, but I want to complete the syllabus.
Yes.
I want to I want to finish that book, which is just so like that aches my heart. Then that like the education part now is my job, and spreading the word is my job. And thanks to your platform and anybody else who's having a conversation with me on Yonju or Hatunoti, that it's allowing me to do that. So it's not a challenge, or even if it's a challenge, it is being addressed by people like you, Rakhi. So thank you.
Thank you so, so much. So, people, if you really like our conversation, this is the link which I'll be sharing in the Facebook once it's uploaded. So, you can get your Yonjus, and it's going to be an amazing journey with your child. I promise you that, because, working with Jaspreet is something beyond phenomenal. And I'm sure what she has designed is par excellence. So, do grab your Yonjus. It's going to be really amazing journey. And, I think Yeonju should be the part of family, as we have, our ludos and snakes and ladders. That's what I really aspire for you, Jaspreet. And thank you so much for coming. This has been. I didn't think that it would go like this, but it was beautiful. It's first experience for me as well to go live with somebody, and I guess we did a good job.
We did.
Yeah,
We did. We did.
we did.
Absolutely, Rakhi. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and it's always a pleasure talking math. And something
Yes.
that we're so passionate about, and that has to flow through the conversation. So I think that's what has made us who we are. And sometimes that first question on your journey is sometimes so long, because that journey is also very, very full of failures, and those successes came very late. uh, so I think we're just basking in the glory of all of those people who rejected, or who did not uh, give us our due at any point we thought we deserved it. But I think this is the best time. So I'm so fortunate that I've been able to do this with you. So thank you, Rakhi.
And I think, I guess that's what math teaching teaches us, to be perseverance. Just stick to the problem, answer to milega hi milega ek din, right? So I guess that's one of the element which math teaches you. So we have couple of questions. So let's answer them. So,
Sure.
okay, so Shabd has been asking a couple of questions. What do you consider the biggest issue in traditional education?
Oh wow, Shab, you've asked a very deep question. Uh, I think there are a lot of merits to traditional education as well. Being this millennial, and whatever we call Gen Z and all of that. I think we have to give credit to, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. We have to give credit to the fact that anything that has come before me has made me who I am. So I definitely give a lot of credit to a lot of traditional methods, because they have been around for a reason. Having said that, when we move from black and white to color, or we move from anything which was mechanical or handwritten to type, um, the purpose of doing that was not to discard what was old, but there was a new way of doing it, simply because it became a matter of population increased, so many scale became more. We're catering to global and a global audience, and we hopefully have people watching from everywhere, are live today. So the packaging of anything has to be different over time. The other thing I feel is that research over time has led us to understand that there's a better way to do it, or this did not work then, and can I do it differently? So needs were different when schools opened. When they did open, it was an industrial era, and you needed to send your child to school so that the factory workers could go to work. In today's time, it's not the same. We have so many people working from home now. So needs of centuries of decades keep changing. Pandemic has changed so much. So modes of delivery are changing, and we are learning more as we are evolving as human beings on how we learn better. So I think over time, traditional is great, and there's so much to take from it. But what's coming up is also very promising, because it's taken into account some research in neuroscience, in brain science, in learning, and now it's kind of making it so accessible to everyone. So I'm actually a very big proponent of like I live in the past as well as the future. Like, I would not want to say that I want to discard everything traditional.
Yeah, I would like to add on to it. Whatever you said was is apt. This traditional education has its own roots in one size fits all solution, right? Now, with the as we are moving in recent times, right, the ample resources we have, and the need of personalized learning, because at least parents are getting aware that my child has unique needs, right? So there has to be a unique solution around it, and I guess that is what is required nowadays. Then Shabd, you are asking too many questions as well. So, okay, so Shabd is asking next question. How do you both vision the gamification of math or other subjects in 5 years from now? Mhm.
So pandemic taught me to not think anything beyond today. But I know that I have a child. So my motivation is, and I have, as educators, we have so many children, including Shabd. So I think in 5 years, nobody. I'm not an astrologer to predict what's going to happen, but I know for a fact, along the lines of one, humanizing everything, and also moving away from conformity to actually individualized learning. We have seen this shift, and we've been grateful that if we watch a video today, we're able to pause it and rewatch it. A lot of you may watch this live, not when post live. So we have these advantages that technology is giving us, and we need to make use of that. So I think over time, gamification will definitely be something that is going to keep evolving. But I think I'm hoping that there's also research done on the addiction part of it, and taking and putting more meaningful learning into to gamification, rather than uh, gamifying just for the style or that face value. Putting more into it than the entertainment part, but actually putting edutainment into gamification will hopefully be the next big thing in gamification.
Yeah, because mostly gamification in ed tech is meant to be that the technology part of it. That you watched a video, you got certain points. You finished some quiz, you got certain. That becomes addiction. Sometimes I have also done that part, especially in Khan Academy. I've just skimmed through the videos just to get the point, and then I feel, what am I doing, right? So sometimes these things happen, but this tangible something which is off screen, and as a parent and as an educator, I'm always in the, this is not passively you can't learn anything, you have to engage, you have to dirty your hands. That's where the learning comes basically. So I'm big promoter of that, get off screen. Internet is one of the vehicle to get the information to a certain extent. Just take that and then go off beat from that, right? And then you do your experiential learning, and I guess that's the way through for the children. Because I think one thing which games definitely teach us, accepting the losses, strategizing for the wins, right? And having failures and then coming out of it. I guess, that's another thing emotionally which really makes children strong. And that's what games offer to us.
Absolutely. And that gamification will take many modes. So, for
True.
me, I wanted to stick to kinesthetic, a very tactile approach to learning. And that's why the cards are physical cards. Tomorrow I'll make an app out of it. So yes, but then that will just be so that the reach is more than it would be if it's physical. So the modes I think will change in gamification itself. It's how people will use it. That's going to make a difference. Yeah,
Yeah. It was an interesting discussion.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Shab.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you, Shab, for asking questions. And if there are more questions, I mean, okay, so okay, Nandini. Hi, Nandini. Thank you for coming live. Thank you, Shab, for coming live and asking wonderful questions. I can see other people live as well, but I can't see the messages. But that's okay. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Jaspreet, for taking time on Sunday evening. And thank you all the viewers who are here on Sunday evening live. So we'll keep coming with some really, really good things in times to come. We started with Jaspreet. I am so heartfelt. I know such a heartfelt thank you to you for
Thank
honoring
you.
this FB live, and let's do good things together.
Absolutely. Let's keep mathematizing, everyone, and we will
Yes.
see you soon. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. Thank you, Rakhi. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Bye bye.